Before I lift you up, I need to see if you can survive being torn down. That's the silent message behind every test a Sigma man goes through. If you're a true Sigma, you've probably felt like life has been throwing punches long before rewards even came into the picture. People around you might seem to move forward with ease while you're stuck in battles nobody sees. That's not a coincidence, that's intentional. God doesn't test everyone the same. Why? Because not everyone is being prepared for something extraordinary. Sigma men are cut from a different cloth, built to lead without needing the spotlight, to walk alone without falling apart, and to carry weight most men would collapse under. And for that kind of strength, there's no shortcut, no handouts. Just pain, pressure, and patience. Each setback is meant to sharpen you. Every betrayal, every loss, every silent season where no one claps for you, it's all part of the refining process. You're not being broken, you're being built. Quietly, purposefully. You're not cursed, you're being carved. You don't need the crowd, you don't need approval. You need to keep showing up, keep growing in silence, and keep trusting that the deeper the struggle, the higher the purpose. If God is testing you more than others, it's because He's preparing to elevate you higher than most. So don't quit. Don't question your worth. You were never meant to fit in, you were meant to rise, quietly, powerfully, unshakably. Number 1, because elevation without depth is fragile. Here's the truth that most people ignore. Rising too fast without roots is dangerous. God knows it. That's why He doesn't rush the elevation of a Sigma male. You see, a Sigma man isn't just any man. He's not chasing clout. He's not wired to fit in. He's not here to be seen. He's here to endure. And that kind of strength doesn't come from praise. It comes from pressure. Before God gives a Sigma man any real influence, He digs deep. And that digging, it doesn't feel good. It looks like isolation. It feels like betrayal. It sounds like silence. But it's not punishment, it's preparation. Because if a Sigma man isn't rooted in who he truly is, then all the success in the world will crush him instead of elevate him. This is why things take longer for you. This is why you've had to fight battles that nobody around you seems to understand. Because God is building depth in you. Not surface-level, image-based success, but deep, immovable strength. He's stripping away the pride, burning off the weakness, and grinding your ego down to the truth. Why? Because when the storm hits, and it will, you won't have time to learn how to stand. You'll need to already know. God's not trying to embarrass you or delay your blessings. He's making sure that when the doors finally open, you're not some shallow man who got lucky. You're the man who was forged for it. Unshaken, silent, grounded. So when things fall apart, don't think He's forgotten you. He's making sure you can carry the weight of what's coming next. Because elevation without depth isn't success, it's a setup. And God doesn't set up Sigma men to fall, He builds them to last. Number 2, because He's meant to heal generational wounds. Some men are born to live quiet, ordinary lives, but the Sigma male, he's born into a bloodline with cracks in it, cycles of pain, silence, dysfunction, and unhealed trauma. And God doesn't ignore that. In fact, He lets the Sigma feel all of it, not to punish him, but to wake him up. Before elevation, God allows him to carry the full weight of what's been passed down, anger that was never dealt with, emotional neglect that became normal, broken men who taught him how to survive but not how to feel. That weight? That's not random, it's the assignment, because the Sigma man isn't just here to escape his past, he's here to break it, to cut the cord, to draw a line in the sand and say, this ends with me. But that kind of purpose doesn't come cheap. God will press him, test him, isolate him, and make him sit with pain that didn't even start with him. So when he finally rises, he doesn't just win for himself. He wins for everyone who came before him and everyone who comes after. This is why life feels heavier for the Sigma man, why nothing is ever simple, why healing takes longer and trust comes slower. Because God is rebuilding an entire foundation through one man, and that man has to be unshakable. So if you're that man, if you feel like you're carrying more than your fair share, just know it's because you're not just rewriting your story, you're rewriting the entire bloodline. And when you rise, your sons won't have to recover from your wounds. Your daughters won't have to guess their worth. Your family tree will no longer be rooted in pain, but in purpose. You're not just chosen, you're called, and it's heavy for a reason. Number 3, because influence can corrupt the unchecked ego. Let's be honest, power can change people. Influence can feed the ego in dangerous ways. And for Sigma men, whose presence already speaks louder than most people's words, that kind of power becomes a weapon. That's why God doesn't elevate a Sigma until his ego is dealt with, completely. Before you ever get the platform, the influence, or the respect you've earned in silence, God makes sure you're not driven by a need to prove yourself. He'll strip you of applause, delay your recognition, and keep you in the shadows, not because you're not ready externally, but because your heart still has things to outgrow. See, a Sigma man's voice can shift the room. His silence can make people rethink their entire lives. His energy can lead without saying much, but if his ego hasn't been checked, that same power can turn into control, manipulation, and pride masked as confidence. So God humbles him early, privately. He lets him face rejection, be misunderstood, and watch less capable men get praised first. Why? To test what drives him. To see if he'll still walk in purpose when no one's watching, still speak truth without needing applause, still carry the weight without asking for credit. Because if you still need validation, you're not ready for influence. When God does elevate a Sigma, he makes sure that man isn't addicted to praise, likes, followers, or being the smartest one in the room. He makes sure the Sigma no longer needs to be heard, only chooses to speak when it actually matters. So if life feels like it's been stripping you of your pride, your comfort, your image, good. It means you're being prepared for real power. Not loud, flashy power, but the kind that moves mountains just by standing still. And that kind of power only belongs to a man whose ego has already died. Number 4, because he will be targeted, not just seen. Let's get something straight. Elevation doesn't just come with recognition, it comes with enemies. The moment a Sigma man rises, he becomes a target. Not because he asked for attention, but because his presence alone threatens people who live for approval. That's why God doesn't let a Sigma level up too soon. He knows what's waiting at the top. Jealousy, lies, betrayal from people who once called you brother, smiles that hide knives. And if you haven't been trained under pressure, you'll fold, or worse, become just like the ones who tried to tear you down. So God tests the Sigma in private before he ever blesses him in public. He lets him feel betrayal early. He lets him walk through envy, through fake love, through rejection, not to harden him, but to teach him how to endure without becoming bitter. Because here's the truth, you're not just being elevated to be seen, you're being elevated to be attacked. And God wants to make sure you can handle that without losing who you are. Most men get power and immediately change. They start moving from ego, flexing status, clapping back at haters. But the Sigma, he learns to let his silence speak. He learns to walk away without needing revenge. He knows that rising isn't about proving anyone wrong, it's about staying right with himself. So if you feel like life is throwing betrayal after betrayal at you, don't ask why me, ask what is this preparing me for? Because when you finally rise, and you will, you won't just be seen, you'll be watched, criticized, targeted, and God's making sure you can carry that weight without cracking, without changing who you are. The higher the calling, the sharper the attacks. But a real Sigma learns to walk through fire without smelling like smoke. Number 5, because he's going to break cycles. Others couldn't. This isn't just about you, that's the part most people miss. A Sigma man's pain isn't random, it's surgical. God doesn't just throw hardships your way for no reason. He's testing you with the exact same wounds your father, grandfather, and great-grandfather couldn't handle, because you're the one who's going to finish what they couldn't survive. You feel things deeply that they numbed. You question patterns they accepted, you wrestle with thoughts they buried, and that isn't weakness, it's divine strategy. You've been chosen to break the cycles that broke them. Emotional silence, fear disguised as pride, being physically present but emotionally absent, settling, folding, checking out. God saw where the pain started, and now he's watching you carry it with no blueprint, no applause, and sometimes no help. But you're not being punished, you're being positioned. The fire you're walking through is not to burn you, it's to forge you, because it takes a different kind of man to say, enough. To stop running, to face the addiction, to raise his kids differently, to love without fear, to lead with scars instead of ego. You're not just healing yourself, you're healing generations before and after you. That's why the pressure is heavier, that's why life feels more intense, because you're not a repeat, you're the rewrite. And God's testing you not to break you, but to see if you're truly ready to carry the weight of a bloodline that's been screaming for freedom. Your pain has a purpose, your test has a name, it's legacy. You're not just the strongest, you're the chosen. So don't you dare back down. You're not here to escape your past. You're here to end it. Number 6, because his heart has the capacity to carry nations. Let's talk real. Anybody can carry a title, but very few can carry people. Their pain, their fears, their trust, their hope. And that's exactly why God tests the Sigma male's heart before he hands him anything with weight, because a Sigma man's path isn't about climbing for power, it's about carrying purpose, and that starts with the heart. Most people crumble under emotional pressure. They get overwhelmed, they retreat. But the Sigma, God built him different. And before God uses him, he strengthens the only thing that can truly hold nations together, a steady, grounded, healed heart. That's why you feel so much, why you carry what others ignore, why their problems stick with you long after they've walked away. God's showing you what it means to feel deeply, but not be destroyed by it, to carry burdens without becoming bitter, to lead without needing applause. Because the Sigma won't just lead projects, he'll lead people. Real people with real trauma, silent pain, and broken dreams. And when they come to him, they won't be looking for perfection, they'll be looking for a heart that understands. That's why God breaks your heart first. He stretches your emotional limits, he tests your patience, he surrounds you with people who need what you're still learning to give. Because he's not training you to impress, he's training you to carry. God doesn't want your heart cold or arrogant. He wants it strong and soft at the same time, unshakable in storms but still gentle enough to see others clearly. Because when he finally elevates you, you won't just be a voice in a room, you'll be a place people run to, and that kind of man, he can't be trained in comfort. He has to be tested in the trenches. So if it feels heavy right now, it's because you're being built to carry more than yourself. You're not just leading, you're covering, and that's rare. Number 7, because he doesn't just want a seat at the table, he'll build his own. Some men spend their whole lives begging for a seat at tables they'll never be respected at. They shrink themselves to fit, stay silent to be accepted, and celebrate crumbs like it's a feast. But not the Sigma man. He was never built to beg, he was built to build. And that's exactly why God isolates him before elevating him. See, before the Sigma ever gets the platform, the influence, the recognition, God teaches him how to sit alone, to eat alone, to clap for himself when no one's watching. Because if he doesn't learn how to survive solitude, he'll spend his whole life compromising just to feel included. God makes sure the Sigma doesn't rely on approval to feel powerful. He trains him in obscurity, in silence, in seasons where nobody invites him in, just to make sure he doesn't start thinking he needs them. Because when you know how to build your own table, you stop chasing the ones that wouldn't even give you a chair. The truth is, the Sigma man doesn't want to be accepted. He wants to create, and God's preparing him to lead spaces that don't exist yet. Rooms no one's thought of, moves no one expects, and you can't do that if you're still addicted to fitting in. So if you're in that season where no one's calling, doors seem locked, and you feel like the world is moving without you, pause, look around. You're not being left out, you're being set apart. Because when God finally releases you, you won't just walk into rooms, you'll own them. You won't just sit at tables, you'll build ones that others will beg to sit at. But first you have to master being alone without shrinking. You have to eat in silence without starving for applause. Only then can you lead without needing validation. Number 8, because he has a tendency to fix what should be left broken. Let's be real, Sigma males see what most people don't. They see potential in people who've already been counted out. They try to fix what's broken, heal what's toxic, and give second chances like it's oxygen. But here's the hard truth. Not everything broken needs to be fixed. Some things are meant to stay buried. That's why God tests the Sigma male through betrayal, repeatedly. Not because he wants to break his spirit, but because he wants to sharpen his discernment. God knows the Sigma's heart is big, loyal, forgiving. But too often that loyalty gets weaponized against him. So what does God do? He lets the Sigma pour into people who drain him, trust people who betray him, help people who turn around and cut him, not to punish him, but to teach him a painful but necessary lesson. Stop resurrecting what I've already buried. Every betrayal is a wake-up call. Every broken bond is a mirror. God is saying, you can't save everyone. You're not called to fix what I've already shut the door on. Because sometimes holding on to potential is just a pretty word for delaying your purpose. Sigma males must learn the art of release, of walking away without bitterness, of understanding that just because someone's not evil doesn't mean they're meant to go with you. That lesson only sinks in when God lets them feel the sting of being betrayed by the exact people they tried to save. So if you're tired of being the strong one, the fixer, the one who always sees the best in people who give you their worst, understand this. God is training your heart to stop choosing what feels familiar over what's actually right. You're not here to play savior. You're here to walk in destiny. And sometimes that means letting things stay broken because God broke them for a reason. Number 9, because he's dangerous when fully aligned. Let's make something clear. A Sigma male in full alignment is not safe for fake systems, fragile egos, or manipulative people. And that's exactly why God doesn't rush his process. Because once he's aligned, once he knows who he is and walks in it unapologetically, he's unstoppable. But before that happens, God has to do something critical: purify his rage. Because yes, the Sigma carries fire, but if that fire isn't refined, it'll burn the wrong bridges, fight the wrong battles, and confuse anger with purpose. You see, Sigma men feel deeply but rarely show it. They absorb everything: disrespect, betrayal, lies, power games, and store it like fuel. And if they're not careful, that pressure can explode in the wrong direction. God knows that. So he doesn't let them rise too fast. Instead, he breaks them down first. He takes them through storms that humble the ego, silence the chaos, and force them to learn self-mastery. Because here's the truth: a Sigma male with unhealed anger is dangerous in the wrong way. But a Sigma male whose anger has been purified, whose rage has been redirected into wisdom, boundaries, and purpose, he's dangerous in all the right ways. He exposes lies without saying a word. He disrupts rooms just by walking in with integrity. He challenges systems without needing a title. And manipulative people, they can't touch him because he sees through them instantly. That kind of man is rare. That kind of man is a threat to anything built on control, deceit, or performance. And God knows that once he's elevated, his influence will carry serious weight. So before he lets him loose, he makes sure his power isn't tainted by pain, ego, or revenge. You're not just being delayed, you're being refined. Because when you finally align, you won't just move through the world, you'll shift it. Number 10, because he will have to make unpopular decisions. Let's be honest, leadership isn't about being liked. It's about staying in alignment even when it costs you people. And for Sigma males, that price is especially high. Why? Because deep down, even though they prefer solitude, they still feel the pressure to not disappoint anyone. But here's where God steps in. Before the Sigma can lead, God strips him of the need to please. Because the truth is, you can't make bold moves if you're addicted to being understood. Sigma men are wired to think differently. They make decisions that don't always make sense to others. They walk away when most would stay. They say no when everyone expects yes. And that kind of clarity, it offends people, it rattles comfort zones, it creates distance. So God prepares them early. He takes them through situations where they're misunderstood, misjudged, and even rejected. Not because they did something wrong, but because they chose alignment over approval. That's the training ground. God is slowly killing off that hidden part of them that still wants to be seen as the good guy. Because when the moment comes, and it always does, the Sigma will have to choose between peace and people, between growth and groupthink, between walking his path or shrinking to stay liked. And when that moment hits, God doesn't want him flinching. He wants him steady, confident, free from emotional debts and false loyalty. Because some of the decisions the Sigma will have to make, they'll disappoint family, confuse friends, and end relationships, but they'll be right. So if you felt the sting of people walking away lately, if you've been labeled cold or too distant, don't panic. You're not becoming heartless, you're becoming focused. God is breaking your need to please, so when it's time to lead, you'll be unshakable. Not because everyone agrees, but because you finally stopped needing them to. Number 11, because he's called to influence without selling his soul. In a world obsessed with image, clout, and quick wins, a Sigma male stands out, not because he wants to, but because he refuses to play the game. He's not wired to chase trends, flatter the crowd, or water himself down for attention, but that's exactly why God tests him first. You see, before he gives him a platform that lasts, God lets him taste what the world offers. The fake validation, the shortcuts, the deals that come with strings, the attention that feels good but cost your soul. God lets him walk through all of it, not so he'll take it, but so he'll learn to recognize it, reject it, and rise above it. Because the truth is, the world doesn't just hand power to the most talented, it rewards the most obedient to its system. And a Sigma, he doesn't obey systems. He questions them, breaks them, replaces them with truth. That's dangerous to a world built on illusion. But before he can carry that kind of influence, God checks his hunger. He asks, will you still speak truth if it costs you likes? Will you stay authentic if it means moving slower? Will you wait longer if it means doing it clean? Because a Sigma man with a diluted soul is just another puppet. But a Sigma who stays rooted in truth, he becomes a voice that lasts long after the noise fades. That's why the tests come first. God strips away ego, shakes out hidden desperation, and kills every craving for cheap praise. So when he finally elevates him, there's no mask, no compromise, no sellout, just pure weight. You weren't made for hype. You were made for legacy. And legacy takes longer because it's built on truth, not performance. Number 12, because he wasn't made to be liked, he was made to awaken. Here's the truth that most people can't swallow. Being liked is easy, being real is costly. And the Sigma male, he wasn't sent here to be liked, he was sent to wake people up. And that kind of presence, it makes people uncomfortable. God doesn't train the Sigma for soft landings or public applause. He trains him for disruption, for confrontation, for spiritual alarms that shake dead spaces. While others are taught to blend in, he's taught to stir waters, and you can't do that if you're afraid of being misunderstood. That's why God lets him experience isolation early. That's why people misread his silence, call him arrogant, or say he's too intense. It's all part of the training, because someone who's called to awaken others can't be emotionally controlled by needing to be liked. When you're wired to bring light into darkness, you'll irritate the blind. When you're called to call things out, you'll offend those who profit from silence. And when your spirit can't be bought, you'll be labeled difficult, rebellious, or cold. That's fine. God's not building a public speaker. He's building a spiritual disruptor. So if you find yourself constantly misunderstood, don't shrink. That tension isn't punishment. It's proof you were never meant to fit in. You were built to wake the room without saying much, to make people reflect, question, and shift, simply by staying true to what burns inside you. God didn't call you to comfort the sleeping. He called you to shake the ground beneath them. You were never meant to be the nice guy with no edges. You were made with sharpness, with weight, with purpose that pierces. And yeah, they might not like you for it, but the ones who wake up because of you, they'll never forget you. In final words, God doesn't test the weak. He tests the ones he plans to trust with weight. If you've ever wondered why your path feels heavier, why your lessons seem harder, or why peace comes after pain and never before it, you're not cursed, you're chosen. God doesn't test Sigma men because they're easy to break. He tests them because he's preparing them to carry what others can't. Influence, legacy, truth, healing, things that don't come cheap. The Sigma male isn't built for shortcuts. He's not created to blend in. His silence has weight. His presence shifts rooms. His choices echo through generations. But that kind of man doesn't get handed power without pressure. God puts him through the fire, because he knows that once he's refined, nothing and no one can stop him. This journey isn't about being liked. It's not about applause or acceptance. It's about impact, alignment, assignment. You were made to lead from the outside, to challenge what's fake and to awaken what's asleep, even if it costs you comfort, connection, or reputation. So don't curse the silence, don't rush the process, and never doubt your value just because your road is different. God hides what's valuable, not to punish it, but to preserve it. And when it's finally time, when the testing is over and the foundation is unshakable, he will elevate you without noise, because your life will speak louder than any words ever could. Hold the line, you're not forgotten, you're being forged. Thank you for watching, God bless you.